Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to be creating a GIF website using the GIPHY API. So I'll just give you a quick demonstration of the website. So here we have some GIFs. So this is the trending tab. So you can double click each of this GIF. It will show you more information about the GIF, and also you can view this on GIPHY if you want. This is a wrong spelling of GIPHY, by the way. It doesn't matter. You can double click any of these items to show you more information, or if you want to share. Okay, and as you can see, we also have nice animations as well here for the text, same as for the button and for the input. Also, we can generate a random GIF. So when we do random GIF, it will generate you a random GIF. You can keep pressing the button, it will keep generate random GIFs. You can also double click each of these GIFs to share if you want to. Okay, and you can click anywhere on this model to close. And we can also go to the liked. Let's say I would like this to add to the likes. Says added to the favorites. And then let's go to the liked. It will show you whatever GIFs that you like. When you reload or when you refresh, if you go to likes, it still stays there because we're going to be using local storage to persist the data. I can go back to the trending. I can add more items, and then I can go back to the liked. As you can see, it's added. Okay, so after we edit some items, we can also remove them from local storage. Okay, as you can see, it's removing the items from local storage. We can also search, let's say WWE for wrestling. You can search. As you can see, there's more items here. You can add this item to the liked library. You can keep liking this. So by the way, if it exists, it will show you the item already exists in the liked. Okay, so I was kind of lazy to create a pop-up for this, so I kind of used an alert, but I was going to make a pop-up, but I was lazy to create new components every time. But yeah, that's fine. You can always create a new pop-up if you want. And yeah, if we go to liked, so as you can see, all of the data that we liked is there. And this, yeah, it's quite responsive for a bit. You can even make it more responsive if you want to. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's it for the project. So if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only about 6% of the people that watch my videos are subscribed. The rest are not subscribed. So please, if you're new, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want me to keep making more videos. Okay, yeah, that's it for this project. I'll see you in the video. Okay, so now I've already created the project. So what we're going to do, let's delete some stuff in the source folder. I'm going to delete everything other than app.js and index.js. Okay, so in the app.js, I'm going to also remove everything in here. I'm just going to leave the app div. Oops, and to disable my GitHub Copilot. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of this. All right, so now I'm going to also get rid of this down here, get rid of everything. And also I'm going to get rid of the index CSS. Okay, so now let's install some packages that we're going to be using. So I'm going to install style components. That's what I'm going to be using for styling. You can use CSS modules, Sass, or anything that you want, but I'd rather use style components. Okay, so let's do npm install style components. I'm also going to install Axios for to do our requests. Okay, it's going to make it easier. I'm also going to install .env. Also, I'm going to install, I think that's what I need for now. So style components, Axios, and .env. I'm just going to install those. Okay, so while we're installing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some folders. I'm going to start with some components folder. And then after that, I'm going to create another folder. I'm just going to name it utils. And then I'm going to create a context folder. Context. Okay, context folder. I think that's what we need for now. If we need anything else, we can always create some folders later. Actually, I'll do one more. Do reducers. All right, so that's what we need for now. I'm just gonna do a hello world in the app here. You can put yellow up, whatever. So now let's try to run this. npm start. So I'm going to run npm start. We need to. I'm also running the original project, so I'm going to run this on a different port. Okay, so this is the final version. So here I'm opening the project. We're also going to do Google Fonts. Let's get some fonts. Okay, so I can't remember what font that I'm using. You can use any font that you want, but I believe it's called Nunito, the one that I'm using. Okay, it's actually this one here. I'm just gonna get rid of this. I'll just search it up again. Okay, so get the font. I'll start from 400 regular, then I'll go 500, semi-bold 600, 700, and then finally extra bolds 800. And then I'm just going to copy this. Let's go to the public HTML, and then down here I'm just going to paste it. Okay, so I'm also going to copy the font family, and then I'm going to create a folder called styles in the source folder, styles. So here I'm going to create a global style, global style.js. Okay, so in here I'm going to import create global from style components. Okay, so we're going to import create global style from style components. Okay, so here we're just going to do export. Export const. We're going to name it global style, and then here we're just going to say equal to create global style. Okay, so now we're creating a global style, and then we're exporting it as well. So in here we can do the basic page resetting and styling. So I'm just going to set the margin to 0, and then box sizing, I'm going to set that to border box, and then list style to none. And then we're going to reset the padding as well to 0. And then the body, I'm going to put that font family, and then I'm going to give it a background color of red. So this is temporary, just to see if it's going to work, and then I'm going to save. So I'm going to go on the index file above the app. I'm just going to import the global style. Remember, we're exporting it, so make sure to import global style like this from styles folder. Okay, so I'm going to save. Let's go to the app. As you can see, our style component is working and our font is working. Okay, so that's the basic setup for our global style. I'll just go back into the global style again. I'm just going to do some basic styles. So I'm just going to set, let's do min height. I'm going to do 100 VH, and then I'm going to do a custom scroll bar WebKit. I'm going to do scroll bar like this. So I'm going to give it a width. So the width, I'm going to set that to 7 pixels. Okay, and that's it for the width. I'm just going to also do the scroll bar track. Okay, scroll bar track, the WebKit scroll bar track. Okay, like this. And then in the track, I'm just going to give it a background color, a dark one. And then we're going to do a thumb. Okay, so let's do thumb. Okay, so for the thumb, I'm just going to give it a linear background and a border radius of 1 rem. Okay, so this is the gradient. So we're starting from this color here and then to this color here. Okay, I'm gonna save. So perfect. So now let's go back. I'm gonna close this body. Okay, we don't need to do any more styles in here. Actually, I'll just do the font size. I'm gonna set the default onto 1.2 rem. That's it. So now let's start with the app. Okay, in the app. So to create a styled using style components, I'm gonna do const app styled equal to styled. So make sure you import style components like this. Import styled from style components. Okay, so styled, and then I'm going to do styled dot div. Div. It's a div. Okay, so in here we just need to copy this styled and then replace this div here because we've created a div using style components. Okay, so what we need to do, we can do the styles in here. All right, so for the app styled, I'm going to set the min height to 100 VH as well. All right, So what I need to do first, we need to set up some variables. Okay, so in the styles, I'm going to create a new file. I'm just going to name this themes. Okay, so this themes is going to create our variables that we're going to be using. Okay, so for example, here, so we have some variables for the colors and stuff. We can change between, the themes. So we're creating a file, an array here, export const themes. So in here, we're going to create an array of themes. Okay, so the first one is, so it's going to be like it's going to be like an array of objects. Okay, so the first object, you can name this theme whatever you want. So I'm going to name it dark. I'm going to start with the dark theme by default, and then here you can start putting some variables of the colors that you want to use. Okay, so I'm just going to paste in some colors because I don't want to waste your time doing the colors one by one on video. So here are the colors that I'm going to be using. So if you want to get the source code for this one, you can just go to the GitHub file and then just copy these variables here. Okay, so this is the dark theme. So now these are the color variables. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to create a context for us to be able to access these variables. So let's go to the context and then let's create a theme context. Okay, so for the theme context, this one is going to allow us to use these variables, the color variables. Okay, I'm going to close the themes. So just go to the theme context and then here we're going to import React. So we're going to import React. So now we've imported React. So what we need to do is say const, when I create a theme context, and then here equal to React, and then we're going to do create context. Okay, so we have a theme context and then we should have a theme update context. So because we want a context that allows us to use the variables and also to update the variables. Okay, let's say here we want to, as you can see, we have light and dark mode. So we're updating, like the state. So we want a context that allows us to do that. Okay, so theme update context. And then here we're just going to say export const. So let's name it theme provider. You can name this whatever you want, provider. And then it's going to take in children. So the children is going to be like our app. Okay, so whatever we pass in, the children is going to be like our app. We need to surround our app with the theme provider, and then the children is going to be the actual app. Okay, so in here we're just going to return. Okay, so oops, not return, it's return. So in the return we're just going to say theme context dot provider. Okay, and then here we're going to say theme update context dot provider. Okay, and then here we just pass in the children. Okay, so we need to send a value for the theme provider. So let's say hello world for the value here, and then here we need a function for us to access those variables, like the colors and stuff. So let's name it use theme. Okay, use theme, that's the name of the that's the name of the function we're going to be using to access those variables. Okay, so let's make it an arrow function. Okay, so in here we're just going to return we need to import use context from React. Use context, so make sure you import use context like this, and then here we're just going to pass in the context, which is our theme context. So this allows us to access, but we also need to do another one that allows us to update. So theme update. Okay, use theme update, use a bed theme or whatever. Okay, so here instead of theme context, we need to do the update. Not use theme update. We need to do the theme update context. Yeah, like this. So we have two functions. This allows us to use the variables. This allows us to update the state, whatever state that we're going to create. So we need to see if we have access to this value first. So we need to go to the app. Remember, the children is going to be the app. So we need to wrap the app with the theme provider. So go to the index.js in here, just cut this, and then make sure you get theme provider. Theme provider should be coming from context, and then you put the children, which is the app. So make sure theme provider is coming from context. Make sure you import that. And then let's see if we can say const, let's say theme, and then we need to do use theme. okay, which is coming from the context, the function we created. We're exporting this function, that's why we have access to the function in here. And then here I'm just going to do cog, and then I'm going to do theme. So if I do this, hopefully we're going to see hello world from the console. I'm going to go to the console, F12, and then let's go console. As you can see, it says hello world here. Okay, something, a value prop is required. Yeah, we didn't pass in the value for the update. Don't worry, we're gonna do it later. As you can see, it's hello world, so we have access to the variable. So now what we need to do, we need to go back to the theme context and create some state for us to access those variables. Okay, so I'm gonna say const. I'm gonna create a theme state, and then I'm gonna say set theme, and then I'm going to do equal to use state. So make sure you import use state. I'm gonna say 0. Okay, I'm going to explain why it's 0, and then I'm going to do const selected theme. I'm going to say equal to themes. So make sure you import themes. Okay, themes, and then I'm going to say theme. Okay, so what's going on here is we're creating a state. So the initial value is set to 0. Okay, so here the selected value here is going to select the first theme. Okay, which is so this theme is 0 by default. So the themes is this array. The themes, we're selecting the value, which is initially 0. Let's say if it's 1, it's going to select the second item in the array. But in this case, we're selecting the first item, which is 0. So if you go, the first item in the array is this first object here, the dark theme. Let's say if we have multiple objects, so this will be different, array items. So the first one is 0. So because array 0 index, 0 based. So the first item is 0, which is the light theme. So when we add more themes, it's going to, we just need to change the state instead from 0 to 1, something like that. So it depending on how many themes we want to create. So the selected theme is targeting the first object. Okay. So in the value here, we just need to pass the selected theme, which is the first theme, which is the dark theme. Okay. And then in the update theme, the value, we're just gonna need to set the theme because we're going to update this set theme state, okay, for us to update. So now I'm gonna save. So now, as you can see in the console, we see those variables. Now we have access to those variables. So now let's go back to the app and start doing the initial markup for our app. So what we're going to do in the app style here, I'm just going to give it a background color. So theme. So now we have access to the theme, which is those variables. I'm going to pass the theme here as a prop because I want to access this theme in the styles. Okay, so in here, when I do background color, so I'm gonna do like this. I'm gonna do props. So I'm gonna do props dot theme. Okay, if I do color, and then I'm gonna do bg1. That's the name of the variable that I want to use for the background color. As you can see, it's now dark. Okay, so now it's now dark. What I'm gonna close this. Let's start with the header component. I'm going to create a component in the components files. I'm gonna say header.js. Make sure the spelling is correct. Header.js. So in the header, I'm just going to create a functional component. I'm gonna do const header styled equal to. I'm gonna do styled, and then we're gonna do dot header. It's gonna be a header because we're creating a header. So in here, I'm going to my spellings are incorrect. I'm not good at typing on the keyboard. Okay, so now in the header, that's our first component. Let's do the logo bit. I'm gonna say dot logo. Oops, logo. So in here, I'm gonna do a span. I'm gonna say powered by. Okay, and then here I'm just going to have a logo, which is an SVG. So if you go to GIPHY, you can look for the logo online and stuff. Just inspect here, and you can just get the SVG. Where is it? Hold on, I need to get rid of this. So here, so just get the SVG here. Just copy the SVG. You can just find it online. You can copy the SVG code, and then just go back into the code and then paste in the SVG in here, like so. So now you have the actual logo. Okay, so so now with the logo, after that I'm going to have the form. Okay, form. So for the form, I'm going to have an input. I'm going to say dot input control. So for the input control, I'm just going to have an input here, input, and then I'm going to have a placeholder and then a button. Okay, so I'm going to after the input, I'm going to have a button. Down here I'm just going to do button. I'm going to give it a class button dot submit btn. You can name this whatever you want. And then here I'm just going to put a search icon, which I don't have, so we need to go to font awesome cdn. Font awesome cdn. So go to the font awesome cdn, copy this link tag, and go to the public, and after the fonts, just paste in the font awesome link. And I'm going to go to the actual font awesome website, and I'm going to copy the search link. Let's look for the link but the icon. So get the magnifying glass. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to close this search. So up here I'm just going to create const search equal to the icon. Okay, so now we have the icon. Make sure you put this as a class name. So now we have the icon. So that's it for the header. What we need to do is just need to style this. Okay, so for styles, let's give it a placeholder actually. So for placeholder, you can just say search or GIFs. Okay, so in input, type text, and then placeholder. Okay, so now what we need to do, let's render the header in the app component. Okay, so in here I'm just gonna do header. Okay, so I have auto import, so make sure you import the header. Okay, so now I'm going to save. So let's close this. Let's go to the, as you can see here, it's not styled. We just need to style this. So let's go back to the header and start styling. All right. Okay, so let's give it a padding. Padding top and top, I'm going to set that to 2 rem, top and bottom, and then left and right, I'm going to set that to 22 rem. Okay, so padding. I'm going to give it a background color. So we need to do the theme prop here. Theme. So make sure you import. So I'm going to do const theme equal to use theme. So make sure you import use theme from context. Okay, as you can see here. So we need to access the color here. Okay, using props. So I'm going to use the color number BG2, and then I'm going to do flex, display flex, give it a gap of 2 rem, and then direction to column, and then I'm going to save. Okay, as you can see, it's looking nice. I'm going to target the logo class. Logo. So for the logo, I'm going to do display flex again, give it a gap of 1 rem, and then align it into center and justify content to center. Okay, like so. I want it to be here. Okay, I'm going to target the span within the logo, and then I'm going to do uppercase text transform, and then give it a color of color gray for the using the props. Okay, using the variables. As you can see, it's now colored gray. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. And then I'm going to target the SVG, which is the icon. The icon, I'm going to give it a width of 10 rem. You can give it any width you want. So as you can see, it's now bigger. Okay. After that, I'm going to collapse the logo. I'm going to say form. So for the form, I'm going to give it a width of 100%. Width of 100%. And then I'm going to target the input control. Input control. So for the input control, I'm just going to give it position of relative and width of 100%, because I'm going to position absolute the button. Okay, so I'm going to target the actual input in the input control. Input. So for the input, I'm going to do z index of 10 with 100%, font family and font size to inherit. Okay, because by default it doesn't inherit the font family and font size. And then I'm going to give it a padding top and bottom 1 rem, and then left and right 2 rem. Okay, and then give it an outline and a border of none. I'm going to save. Let's see what we have. So here's our input. So now we just need to style this button here. Okay, so for the button, input, I'm going to collapse the input. So we're doing position relative in the input control. I'm going to do an after pseudo element. I'm going to do an after. I'm going to create a pseudo element, which is this here. So if I go back here, let me go back to the dark. When I do hover, as you can see, there's this nice border that is coming around the input. So this is this after pseudo element that we're creating. So I'm going to set the content to an empty string, top 50%, and then left, I'm going to set that to point minus 3 rem. So you need to experiment with these values here. So I had to experiment this off video. So you can, experiment to see what values you need to do. And then I'm going to give it a width and a height of 100%. Okay, I'm going to save. So for the background, you just need to give it a background color. So if you want to, you can use the colors that are in the themes in here. I'm just going to paste in a background color, which is, let me go back, which is this color here, the salmon color, the purple color. You can do linear gradient using the variables if you want to, but I'm not going to change this, so there's no need to put them into a variable. And then I'm going to set the background size. I'm going to set that to let me set that to 400%. 400%. Okay, so that's the background size. I'm gonna reduce this. Okay, so that's the background size because I want to animate this. As you can see, it's now zoomed in a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a z index and a padding of 0.3, and then give it a scale of 0. And then I'm going to give it a border radius of 1 rem and the transition. All right, and the transition. And then I'm going to give it an animation with the name of gradient. So that is going to be 7 seconds in duration, and then it's going to be ease in and ease out for the transition, and then infinite. Okay, it's going to run infinitely. So here I'm gonna do a keyframes, and then I'm gonna give it a name of gradient. Gradient, that's the name of the animation. I cannot type, so I'm just gonna copy and paste. Okay, so gradient. So at 0%, we're going to animate this. So at 0, I want the background position to be 0%, and then 50%. Okay, top and bottom, left and right. Okay, so and then we're going to do 50%. 50%. I'm going to do 100, and then we're going to do 50% as well. All right, and then finally, it's going to come back to the starting position. We're animating the background position, so oops, it should be 100%. So now let's save. So we should have an animation, but nothing happens yet because we haven't triggered this animation. We haven't triggered this after pseudo element. Okay, so I'm going to collapse the after. So I want to say on hover, when we have the input. Okay, so when I have the input, I'm gonna do like this, and on hover, oops, and hover, when we have the input and then the after. Okay, and also when we focus. Okay, so when we focus the input, focus, I'm gonna do within, actually focus within, and then I'm gonna do after, and then that's when I want to also do a scale. Okay, transform and then scale, and then translate y minus 50% as we did up here. We need to maintain that, and then the scale is going to come back to 1 because it's 0 on start. Okay, so when I hover, as you can see, it's working. Okay, so now it's as you can see, it's also animating. Okay, because we're animating the background position. So now what we need to do is style this button here for it to be here. So for the button, after this, I'm gonna do dot submit button, submit, and then btn or whatever class name you've named it. I'm going to set the percent absolute and then right to 0, and top to 50%, and then transform translate minus 50%, and then display and center everything. Display flex and center everything. Okay, and then I'm going to give it an outline of none, and then a background of transparent, and then a border of none. And also for the color, I'm going to set that to color white and give it a font size of 1.2 rem and font weight of 600. Okay, it's not there yet. Okay, so what we need to do, I'm going to give it a z index of 10, and then a height and a padding and a cursor to pointer and a border radius. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a gradient. So to do a gradient, I'm going to do background. So I'm going to do linear gradient. I'm going to do well, let me say it's going to go to the right side. I'm going to say to right. So in here to right, I'm gonna go to the next line. Oops, I'm gonna go to the next line. So what I'm going to do in the next line, I'm just going to do the props. Okay, so like this. So this is how we access, the variables. Oops, should be props. That's how we access the variable, the props.theme. So for the first one, I'm going to set that to color purple. Okay, and then I'm going to separate that with a comma. I'm going to copy this. You can do three colors here if you want to, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do salmon like that. I'm going to save. Make sure background linear gradient. Okay, and I'm also going to set the background size to 400%. Let me see where it is. Inspect. Okay, button. Let me change the z index. Let me set to 10. Background color red. Okay, for some reason the background is not showing. Let me refresh. Inspect button, background color, set to transparent. Oops, background linear. Because I didn't close this. Oops. Okay, so make sure you close like this, and then I'm gonna save. I'm also gonna get rid of background color here. I'm gonna save as well. Let me see why it's not working still. Background size, background. Did I put here? There's a comma. Okay, perfect. So now we need to also animate this. So we need to do the same animation that we've done before and name it gradient. But here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to reduce the duration. Okay, so gradient, I'm going to set the duration to 3 seconds. Okay, so as you can see now, the button is animating. So I'm going to collapse the animation. I'm going to target the eye. I'm going to change the font size and give it the font size. Okay, I'm going to set that to 1.8 rem. And then the color, I'm just going to set that to white. Okay, so color, I can set that to white. I don't need to use a variable, so on either color mode, I'm going to be using white. So okay, as you can see now, it's looking pretty neat. Okay, so that's for the header. Now we just need to do the body. We're going to start with these buttons here. So for the buttons, I'm going to create a component called button.js. Okay, so it's going to be like its own component. I'm going to do const styled button styled. So button styled equal to styled dot button. You can do whatever button div button. I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to paste. Okay, so now I've pasted the button. It's going to have a few props. So let's start with it's going to have an icon. I'm going to do name. I'm going to do icon. I'm also going to do on click. Okay, in here, in the button, we're going to have a span. So for the span, we're going to have an icon. Oops, icon, and then also we're going to have the name. I'm going to have another span in here. Okay, so now let's go and do the styles. I'm going to set the background to transparent, the color to white, cursor to pointer, display flex, and center everything. Okay, I'm going to center everything. I'm also going to give it a border of none and give it a transition of 0.3 seconds. Okay, I'm going to save. I'm going to target the first child. So what we're doing with the button right here. So this is the first span contains the text, and then the second span is this kind of border around the button, which is being animated. Okay, as you can see, it's being animated. So that's the second span. So now I'm going to target the span, the first child. Okay, so for the first child, I'm going to do display flex, align items to center, and give it a z index of 5 and position to relative. Okay, I'm also going to give it a padding of 0.7 rem top and bottom, 2 rem left and right. I'm going to save, and then I'm going to give it a gap of 1 rem and then a background color, of color BG1. Okay, so now that's that. I'm going to save that. I'm going to target the last child, which is this animated div behind the button. Okay, we're just going to give it less z index than the button, which has a z index of 5. So we're going to give it like 1 z index. We're going to position absolute and center that around the button. Okay, so I'm going to paste. So position absolute left is going to be 0.3 rem, and then width is going to be 100% of the button plus 0.6 rem on the right side, and then also we're just going to do a minus negative to come back again, like 0.3 rem to the left side, so we can leave like a 0.3 rem of space to this side and then another 0.3 rem of this side. Same thing for the height. Okay, we're just sharing this 0.6 rem here between the height, top and bottom, and then here between left and right. Okay, and then this background color of red, this is temporary. We're just going to see if it's going to work if we render the button. So now let's actually render this button. Okay, so let's go to the app. I'm going to create a div called .fetch btns. Okay, so in here I'm going to render the button. Okay, so for the button, we're going to render the button in here. Let's do the props. So name, let's do, it's called liked, the first one, and then we're going to do icon. So for the icon, what we can do, we can go to the font awesome and copy the icon that you want. I'm going to use I'm just going to put the actual icon in here. So the I tag. Okay, so here I'm going to do class name. So class name, I'm going to do FA solid. I'm going to do FA heart. I'm so terrible at spelling. FA heart. So that's the icon that I'm going to use. I'm going to save. Hopefully, should have a button. There it is. There's our button. As you can see, there's a red background here. Okay, so now with the icon, that's what we need actually for now. Let's go back to the button. Okay, so the last child is set to red. This one is set to color BG1. I don't think it's showing. I'm going to see why. Span last child. Position relative. I'm going to inspect. Okay, so this one, Z index is 5. I want to see why the background color is not working. Oh, I think I know why. Because we haven't set the theme in here like this. So we need to put the theme as a prop. Okay, so we need to get the theme from the context. Const theme equal to use theme. Okay, from context. So make sure you pass the theme as a prop so we have access to the variables. So now, as you can see, it's working, but I want it to be centered somewhere here, the button. So not only do I want this button, I want other 2 buttons as well. Okay, as you can see in the final product, we have 3 buttons here. So that's what I want. So I'm going to duplicate this 1, 2. Okay, so just change the text around and change the icons. So the text, this one is going to be trending GIFs, and then the other one's going to be random GIF. GIF, I don't know how you pronounce it. So now I'm just going to change the icons. For the middle one, I'm going to set that to trending icon. So you can just go to font awesome and copy the class and change this to class name. All right, so I'm also going to use the shuffle icon for the last one. I'm going to paste in the shuffle icon here. Okay, so now as you can, oops, never mind. So there's the buttons. So let's copy the fetch buttons class name and go down here and start styling them, because we want to kind of center those. So we're going to basically do a display flex, and then you know the drill, how to center the things with flex. Okay, so display flex and justify content to center, and then I'm going to give it a gap of 4 rem, and then margin top of 4 rem, and then margin bottom of 2 rem. Okay, I'm gonna save. So as you can see now, it's now centered. So now we just need to do the animation. Okay, so I think there's something wrong with the calculations here. Let me see if I did the correct calculations. Actually, I think it's correct. So never mind. Okay, so now let's just do the animation. Let's go back to the buttons. Instead of red color, I'm just going to if you remember the animation we've been doing, the animating the background position, that's basically the same animation that we need to animate. So the background, I'm going to set that to background size to 400%. Where's the red color? Get rid of this, and then I'm going to set that to a gradient color coming from the variable. Okay, so I'm going to use the color purple and color green to create the gradient. I want to save. As you can see now, color purple gradient, and it's zoomed in 400%. You can even change this value to 200 here, the left and right. Okay, so and then what we need to do, let's create an animation and give it a duration of 5 seconds, and the name is gradient. I'm just going to paste in the animation we've been doing here. Okay, I'm going to save. Okay, so as you can see, it's now animating in. Okay, perfect. So we need to do some hover effects. So I'm going to collapse the span. Okay, when we have the button, when we hover the button on hover, the span, for the span, I want the first child. I want to give it a transition and the color, a different color. Okay, to green, like so. As you can see, the color is now changing to green, and there's a transition as well. I'm also going to do the last child. Okay, last. So for the last child, I just want to pause the animation on hover. Okay, which is the background div. I want it to pause. So when I hover this, the animation is gonna be paused. And when I leave, when I hover the other one, it's going to pause the animation. Okay, when I leave, the animation is gonna continue to play. Okay, when I hover liked, it's going to pause the animation. And then when I leave, it's going to continue playing the animation. Okay, hover, it's gonna pause. And yeah, it's gonna continue playing the animation. So now we've done the buttons. So now what we need to do is to actually fetch some data from our API. So we need to go to GIPHY. Let's do GIPHY API. How do we go to the API? Oops. Let's do GIPHY API. So you go to the developers here, you just create an account. If you create an account and then you go to the dashboard, and then there you copy a key, an API key. I've already created an account. I've copied my key. I'm going to change the key anyway. You cannot use my key. You have to create an account and get your own key. It's pretty straightforward. The process is straightforward. Okay, so you get your key and then go back, come back to the source folder. Actually, not in the source folder, in the main directory. Create a .env file. .env. Okay, so in the env file, so to use the key, we need to prefix this with the React. So make sure you do like this, React app. Okay, so make sure you're prefixing your variables with this React app first, and then you put the name of the variable. Make sure, I cannot stress enough, use the React app first, and then here I'm just gonna say API key. Okay, so first you have to prefix this with the React app, and then name it whatever name you want to name it. So here I'm just gonna paste in the key. This key, by the way, is not going to work when you try it because I'm going to change it. So it's just for me to demonstrate to you how to make this project. Okay, I'm going to save. So make sure you've also installed .env because we want to be able to use the environment variables. So if you go to the package.json, so make sure you have .env installed here. So now we have the env file. What we need to do, we need to get some data. Actually, we need to create one more context. Well, let's name it global.js. So this will be like our main global context. Okay, you can create as many contexts as you want. So here it's going to be like the global one. So we're going to import React as usual, React. So we're going to say const global context equal to react.create context. Okay, so this is our global context. I'm going to say export const global, can name it global provider equal to, it's going to be an arrow function. It's going to take in the children because we need to wrap the app, okay, as we did with the theme context. Okay, so the global, and then here we're just going to return. So for the return in here, we're just going to do the same thing that we did. Okay, so but in this case, we're not updating anything anyway. So for the return in here, we're gonna say, we're gonna say global context.provider. Here we're just gonna pass in the children. The value, let's say hello. Okay, so we need a way to consume this, to consume the context. I'm gonna say export const use global. Okay, you can name this function whatever you want. I'm just going to name it use global. So in here we're just gonna return use context. Make sure you import use context as well. Use context, and then we're just going to do the global context in here. Okay, so now we should have a global context. What we need to do is only go into the index and wrap everything in the global context. So go to the index, cut the theme provider, and the app, I'm going to say global provider. Make sure you're importing from the context. Okay, so now wrap everything with the global theme provider, not theme provider, just global provider. So Let's see if the global is working. So here, let's do const g equal to use global, and then let's do cog. We should see hello, something like that in the console. Let's F12. As you can see, it's hello. We have access to the context. Okay, to the global context. So I'm gonna get rid of this. So what we need to do, I'm gonna get rid of the import here. Go to the global context. I'm gonna close the button. I'm going to close. Let's leave everything as it is for now. Yeah, in the global, I'm going to create some initial state. Okay. So for the initial state, we're going to have a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna say const initial state equal to, it's going to be an object which is going to have a lot of properties. So the first property, I'm going to do loading. By default, I want it to be false. Okay, and then the second property, I'm going to say search results. It's going to be an array that's going to contain our search results. So by default, it's going to be an empty array. I cannot spell, trust me. Search results, and then we're going to do a trending, which is going to be also an array. Oh my days, I cannot spell. Trending is going to be an array. After that, we're going to have favorites. Let's do favorites or liked. You can name this whatever you want. Okay, and then we're going to do random. I think random, I'll just put it as an object. Okay, so this is our initial state. I'm going to save this for now. Let's save, and then let's do some state use reducer. Okay, I'm gonna say const. So it's gonna take the state, okay, and then it's going to take a reducer function, and then here we're going to say use reducer. Okay, we're going to make sure you import use reducer. You import it here from React. So the first thing is going to be the reducer. So I'm going to say global reducer, and then third thing is going to be the second thing is going to be the state, the initial state. Okay, so we don't have this global reducer. We need to actually create it. So here I'm going to say global reducer.js. So I'm going to say export const global reducer. So for the global reducer, it's going to take in some state and also the action, what action we want to perform. Okay, so here we're going to do state, and then the action that we want to perform. Okay, it's going to be an arrow function. So in here, now we need to also return something in this function here. I'm just going to say return. Let's return state. Okay, I'm going to save global reducer. So make sure you import global reducer. Make sure you import it. There it is. It's imported. Perfect. So now, if I COG this state, we should see some initial variables. So this state here, the initial state. Okay, as you can see, we have the initial variables here. The initial state values are here now. Okay, so now we have access to the state. So what we need to do is create some few variables. So up here, I'm going to create a key variable. So I'm going to do a key, and also I'm going to do the base URL. Okay. Here I'm going to say const. I'm going to do API key. Okay, equal to process.env. So make sure you have installed .env, and then I'm going to do .react. It's like app, and then API key. So whatever name you've named your env, make sure the prefix is React app. Okay, the prefix is like this, and then you put the name of whatever key or whatever name you've put. Okay, So that's our API key. Here we're just going to do const. I'm going to do base URL, the base URL. So if you go to GIPHY, you see the base URL. I'm just going to paste it here. I'm going to paste the base URL. That's the base, our base URL. Okay. So now we have the base URL. I'm going to save this now. So now hopefully if I do CLG API key, we should see this in the console. Here's it's undefined. Okay, so our API key is undefined. So I'm going to save. I'm going to go to the .env React app API key. I'm going to copy this name. I'm going to go to the global, make sure the name is correct. I'm going to save. So our key is still undefined, which is weird. Process.env. Okay. That is strange. Let me go back to the package. .env. env. We're also prefixing. I don't know why the env file is not working. React app key. Let me refresh this again. Very strange. Let me try to rerun this project actually. npm start. Yes. Okay, let's go to the console. Okay, so now as you can see, now the API key is showing. So you just need to restart the project to restart the server. Okay, so now it's showing to restart the local host. So now it's showing. So the API key is showing. I'm going to get rid of the console. So what we need to do is to initial fetch. I'm actually going to create some actions in here. I'm going to say global actions .js. Okay. So the first action that we want to do, we want to get the data from the API. Okay. So I'm going to create a function. I'm going to name it get trending GIFs, whatever you want to pronounce it. Okay, whatever you want to call it. So const get. I'm just going to say get trending. You can name this function whatever you want. Let's do an asynchronous function. Okay, so in here, we're going to do an arrow function. And then we're going to dispatch an action. Dispatch. Okay, so the dispatch function is going to take a type. So the type of the action that we want to dispatch is going to be called loading. Okay, loading. So when it's loading, we want to do something. Okay, after that, we're going to say const result. We're going to store the result in the res variable. We're going to say await, and then here we're going to say axios. So make sure you import axios. We're going to do a get request. Okay, get. So where are we going to do the request? So we're going to do a template literals in here, and then we're going to do base URL. Okay, and then we're going to do a slash, and then we want to get the trending, and then we're going to do a question mark, and then we're going to do API, and then key underscore API key. So, and then here we say equal to our API key variable. And then we need to also put a limit of how many items we want to get. Okay, and then we're going to say and we're just going to say limit, limit, let's say equal to 30. That's going to be our limit. Okay, so we don't have this action yet, so we need to create this action. Okay, that's why the dispatch is complaining. So in the actions here, I'm going to say export const loading, that's the action, equal to loading. That's our action. Okay, so this is the loading action. All right, so it's named loading. So now let's go back. So we just need to import loading. Okay, so now let's see what the issue is. Dispatch is not declared. So reducer, this should be dispatch. Okay, dispatch. So this is our dispatch function. Okay, it's going to allow us to dispatch actions. Okay, so after that, so we're saving. Let's actually see what we're getting here. I'm gonna do get trending, and then I'm just going to cog the response. Cog response. Let's save. Let's see what we see in the console. We're getting the data, but we're stuck in an infinite loop. Okay. Here I'm gonna get rid of this. It keeps re-rendering, so I'm gonna get rid of that. So now what we need to do after the loading, we need to dispatch an action. Okay, so the action that we're going to dispatch, let's name it get trending. Okay, so that's what we need to set the loading to false. Get trending. Okay, so copy this and paste. So let's go back. Okay, so to the global, we're going to dispatch an action here, and now also I'm going to send the data as a payload. So here we're going to dispatch an action. So we're going to do type. We're going to do get trending. Okay, we're also going to do a payload. We're going to send the data that we're getting from the API. We're going to do response dot data and then dot data. Okay, that's where the data is in the response dot data. Let's save. So now we need to do these actions. So we need to go to the reducers. So here I'm going to switch between each action. I'm going to say switch. Okay, we're going to run switch. We're going to do action. Okay, I'm going to switch action. I'm going to do case. So the first case, let's do case loading. Case loading, we're going to return the existing state, and then loading, it's going to be true. Okay, because we're loading, that's the action. The case that we are get trending, we just got the data. Here, what we need to do, we need to return the previous state. Also, I'm going to set the loading to false because we got the data. It's not loading anymore. And also, I can't remember, what did I name the state? It's called trending. Okay, so the trending, global reducer. Close the. So here I'm going to say trending. So for the trending, well, what we need to do, I need to search to set the payload to the trending state. Okay, so I'm gonna do action. The payload is coming through the action dot payload. Okay, dot payload. Okay, so that's that. So for the default, we can just say break. Actually, let's just break it. Default case, let's just do break. Okay, so that's that. Now let's save. So it should be loading, and then F12. So make sure you have the React Developer Tools installed in the Chrome React Developer Tools. So I'm going to select the global provider, and down here for the reducer, as you can see, trending is an empty array. Why is it an empty array? Trending. It's an empty array. Oh, because we're not calling the function somewhere. Okay, so we need to on initial render, we need to call the get trending. Okay, so make sure you import use effect. Okay, so I'm just going to, let's say, initial renders. All right, so it's going to take in a callback function. So in here, let's do a square brackets for the dependence array. It's going to be empty. So this one, initial render, we're going to do get trending. Okay, it's only going to run on initial render. Let's save. So it should load and then put some results in the trending, which hasn't happened yet, which is odd. Let's see. Get trending. Okay, so make sure you save everything up. Get trending, and get trending is imported here in the actions. Okay. Payload trending. So, and also make sure the spellings are correct in here as well. Let me check here. Okay, so yeah. Boom. Trending is still empty. Okay, let's see why trending is still empty. Let's go to the use effect down here. That is strange. Dispatch, get trending to COG response. Let's see what we see in the console. Okay, so data. Okay, so data. So the data is there. So response is to data. Let's see what we see. Okay, so now, yeah, it's correct. So response data. Okay, and then we're gonna dispatch the get trending action. Let me go back to components, and nothing happens. Let me say COG. Let me COG the state. Okay, let me go to the console. State. All right, so nothing happens. Global reducer. Okay, so loading true, loading false. That is strange. I don't know why it's not updating. Actually, let's try to restart. Let's try to restart this in again. So like what we did last time. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to try to restart this to be localhost again. All right, so now it's loading. Oops. Action dot type. Because I'm switching, remember in the dispatch we have the type. Okay, so the type of the action. Okay, so action dot type. It's my bad. I didn't even notice that. I didn't do action.type. So as you can see now, the data is now in the trending. Okay, so I didn't notice that we need I didn't do action.type. Okay, because we need to switch between the type of the action. So as you can see in the dispatch function here, we have the type. Okay, that's what we needed to do. So now we have the data. We just need to display this data here. So let's go to the, I'm going to get rid of the console. Let's go to the components. I'm going to create a new component. So this one, I'm going to name it, let's say trending. Okay, trending.js. It's going to be a functional component. And then I'm going to export this. Const trending styled equal to styled. It's going to be a div. You can put this actually as an article, and then here I'm going to copy this. Okay, so now let's start with displaying the data, and then we can do the styles later. So I'm gonna get rid of this. Okay, so let's start with an h2. I'm going to get an icon, an arrow. It's called FA arrow trend up. I'm gonna put in a variable called trend. In this here, in the h2, I'm going to put that icon here, trend, and then I'm going to do a trending title. All right, so I'm going to save this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get access to the trending items. So how do we do that? So well, I'm going to use global. So here I'm going to destructure const. I'm going to destructure. Oops. I'm going to destructure the trending from the global. Okay, we don't have access to this trending yet because we're not sending the trending to the global. So we need to go to the global. So in this value here, instead, we're going to send the state. We're going to do dot dot. We're going to spread the state using the spread operator. So we're going to have access to all of those properties, these properties here. Okay, if we destructure, that's why we're doing this, spreading those properties. Okay, so now we're sending those properties. So now we're going to have access to the properties in anywhere that we were going to use the global. Okay, so in this case, in the trending, we're getting the files. When I do cog trending, we should see that in the console because we have access to that now. Because we're not rendering the trending component, I'm just going to do a main, and then here I'm just going to do trending. Okay, so as you can see now, the trending, we can see the files in the console. Perfect. So now let's actually start the main first, and then we go back to the trending. So I'm going to do main in here. For the main, I'm just going to give it a padding. It's basically just a padding for the main. All right, and then I'm just going to save that. All right, so now that's it. That's it for the main. Let's go back to trending. All right, so now for the trending, let's start with mapping through the data. Okay, so we're going to display a grid of this data. So here we're going to do trending dot map. I'm just going to name this item. It's going to be a GIF, whatever you want to call it. Okay, here we're just going to return a GIF item, which we do not have yet. And then the key, I'm going to pass in the GIF.id. Okay, and then we're going to do GIF item And then here I'm just going to pass in the whole GIF. Okay. And then I'm going to spread all of the properties here, the GIF properties. Okay. So I can access them to in the GIF item, which I'm going to create now. GIF, GIF item. Okay. GIF item .js, create functional component and export. All right. So in the GIF item, I'm just going to destructure those properties that we want to be using in here. All right. So first off, I'm going to destructure the ID. I'm also going to destructure the title. I'm also going to destructure the rendered. No, actually not rendered. I'm going to destructure the embed. It's called embed URL. Okay. And I'm also going to I'll just leave it like that. So now for now, I'm going to save. So here I'm going to say GIF item. So make sure you import GIF item and then save. Okay, so now we should see a list of 30 items or returning 30 items. Okay, so when I inspect, actually, let me see, as you can see this array. So the properties that we're doing, we're destructuring in the GIF item. So was the title, the ID. So in this case, I want to get the image. Okay, I want to get the GIF, the image, the actual image. So to destructure that in the GIF item, so here what we're just mapping through the array and spreading the properties of each item. Okay, so we can access them in here by destructuring like this. So I'm going to do a URL. I'm just going to say, I'm just gonna do link. Okay, link. I'm just gonna create link URL as link, and then images, which is this property here. Images, as you can see, this property images, but inside I want to target the original. Okay, so images, it's going to be an object. It's an object, and then I'm going to do original, 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 and then another object inside. It's going to be called URL. Okay, so now this URL is going to be the actual original GIF that we want to access. All right, so let's see if I do img here, and then if I pass in the URL, this one here, the original URL, I'm gonna save. As you can see here, we have the GIFs are showing, GIFs, they're showing. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna get rid of this. So what we need to do in here, I'm just going to do the styles first. So I'm going to create a class. I'm gonna do .gif. Okay, GIF like this, and then in here I'm going to do an image. We're going to do the URL for the image. Okay, and what else do we need? You can put a place an alt tag if you want. I'm gonna do just in case the image doesn't exist. I'm just gonna set the as the title of the image. Okay, why is it red? Cannot have multiple attributes. Oh, okay, so after the image we're going to have the love. Okay, which is the love icon. So it is a class of love. All right, so for the, I'm just gonna put the icon here, which is going to be like a heart icon. I'm just gonna put a class name. Okay, so I'm going to save this. So now, as you can see, we have our images. What we need to do is styling. All right, so let's start by we can actually put this in a separate line like this. Let's do that like this. Okay, so Let's do it like that. What we need to do now, I'm actually gonna put this in here like this. So here now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do const theme equal to use theme from coming from the context. Okay, so use theme. I'm going to pass in as a prop const, not const, but theme equal to theme. Okay, so here const GIF styled equal to styled div. All right, so now I'm going to copy this and then replace the div like so. So now what we need to do is start the initial styling. It's going to be fun. So here I'm going to do dot GIF. I'm going to set the position to relative because I'm going to position absolute the icon. Okay, so here I'm going to target the image. So for the image, I'm going to give it a width of 100% and a border radius of 5 pixels. Okay, so I'm going to save. Then I'm going to target the love icon. Okay, dot love. The love icon, I'm going to set position absolute and put it top to 1 rem, right to 1 rem. Okay, I'm going to save. So as you can see, it should be here at the corner here. Okay, I'm going to target the icon inside the love, and then I'm going to give it a font size and a linear gradient and background and clip text because I want the icon to be gradient. All right, I'm going to save. As you can see, the icon is now gradient. Okay, because I'm just using the 2 colors that are coming from the variables. So make sure you are using the theme as a prop here. So theme, it's a prop, and also getting the theme from the context. All right. So now with that, let's continue with styling. So on hover, the love icon, I want to make the icon bigger, which is transform to scale, transform and then scale, and then we give it a transition as well. Let's save. So when I hover, it's scaling up. Okay, that's it for the icon. So what we need to do is do a grid. So let me show you the kind of grid. So Masonry grid. Masonry, I think that's the name. So this kind of grid, so it's kind of difficult to do if you have like a single array. So as in this case, I have a single array. Our array is like single. It's coming from the API. It's kind of difficult to do this kind of grid. But if we have like separate arrays, it's not easy. It's very easy, I mean, to do this kind of a grid. So now that we have a single array, I didn't know how to do this kind of a grid since we have a single array, but I can do this within different arrays. So there's a package that's going to help us to kind of do this kind of a grid. So it's called Masonry grid. Just type Masonry grid React. I think the name is React import Masonry. It's called Masonry CSS. I think that's this one. Yeah, Masonry CSS. So just install this React Masonry CSS. Install that. Just stop the project and then install Masonry CSS. So once you finish installing that, we need to use that. We need to go to the trending. Both here we are doing. That's where we need to do a grid of the items that are coming from the grid. So we need to do a grid in there. Go back. So to do a grid, we need to import a few things. So we need to import Masonry from React Masonry. So if you go to the documentation here, you can kind of see how to use it. So just here, import like this, and then we just need to wrap that to our element that we need to do a grid on. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this. Let's say masonry like this, and then I'm just gonna put in here because we want to do a grid of the items we're mapping through. All right, so I'm just going to do a few props. So it's going to have a few props. So it's going to have break points columns. Okay, breakpoints columns. You can kind of copy an example of the breakpoint columns in here. Okay, I'm gonna close this. You can kind of copy this. Okay, the object, and you can paste it here. The breakpoint columns object. Okay, so I'm gonna put it here. Okay, so this for the breakpoints. How many columns do you want on breakpoints on the screen size? Okay, so that's the breakpoints, and then here you just give it a class name, some class names which are coming from the masonry. So these should be props in here. Okay, there should be props. So okay, so now we have the props. These classes are coming from masonry, so you can have a quick read here to see what's going on, and then you can kind of copy the styles. Okay, so here down here I'm just gonna copy the styles from masonry grid, the one that I'm looking for. Okay, I'm just going to paste them here. So the classes, the selectors, one sec. So these class names are coming from here. So here, my masonry grid, which is here, and this div, we're targeting the divs inside. And also I had to tweak the margins here, okay, to fit whatever margin that I was looking for, the offsets, okay? So -20 was the offset, and the padding left offset I was looking for. So let's save, let's see what we have. So nothing happens yet because we're not running the project, okay? So npm start now. Okay, so I need to, confirm to run on. Okay, it's loading now. I'm going to close this. Okay, so now as you can see, we have the grid. Okay, it takes a while. It takes a while for the content to actually load fully. So yeah, so now this is the content. So now this is the grid. All right. So it's looking pretty neat. So you can kind of let me show you what I mean. So the offset that worked for me, if I say let's say minus 29 pixels margin left, it's gonna go out of the. It's gonna kind of go out of the main container. I'll show you what's going on after I put a background color. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of 29. Padding left, you can do bottom, you can increase this to let's say 40. You can have bigger spaces. Okay, so yeah, you can kind of tweak these values to suit your needs. Okay, so now I have the grid. Now what we need to do is give it a background color in here. So I'm going to set the background color. So make sure we're using the prop. So trending style theme. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get the theme. Theme. So we're getting trending. So here I'm gonna say const theme equal to use theme. Don't forget to import. Okay, use theme. I'm gonna also get the trend. Okay, so before the masonry, I think we had an H2 here before. Should be trend, then it should be trending. All right, so I'm going to save this. So now it says trending here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a background color. Go down here. So I'm going to set a padding and a background color of color BG2 and the border radius of 1 rem. All right, so now let's save. So there's the border radius and the color. It's looking pretty neat. So we also need to style the H2. So here I'm going to give the font size and a margin bottom a color, display flex, flex gap of 1. Okay, so now let's save and then center. So as you can see, align set to align to center the icon. So we just need to give this icon a color of gradient. Okay, like this. This is the gradient. I'm going to close all of this. Okay, so we need to give it a gradient color. To do the gradient color, we're just going to give the background to linear gradient, and then color blue and green to right, and then just going to clip the background using WebKit. Okay, so you can use any colors you want. So in this case, I'm going to use this color blue and color green too. All right, and then I'm gonna save. I'm actually put this on the next line. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna save. So as you can see, the icon is now gradient. So what we need to do is when I double click to open this model here. Okay, double click, it's going to open the model. Double click, it will open the model. All right, so we need to create a component for the model so that when we double click, it's going to open the model. Let's do components, new components. Let's do model.js. Yeah, I'm getting kind of sick and tired of creating components. Const model styled equal to styled, and then here should be a div. All right, so styled div. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to replace. So for the model, I want to have access to the whatever content is coming from the API. Okay, so if I go to the GIF item, so I want the model to have access to these properties here, right here. Okay, so that means we need to render the model somewhere in here, and then we can send the properties as props. All right. So how do we do that? We just need to render the model. So GIF item. I'm going to create actually a state in here as well. I'm gonna say state state. Okay, I'm gonna say const model. I'm gonna set model equal to use state. So this is like a local state in this component. By default, it's going to be false. Let's do true actually, so we can style this model true. Okay, so the model is set to true. We need a way to show this model when the state is true. Okay, so above before like wait a minute. Above before we do this this GIF here, we just need to show the model. Okay, so here I'm going to say model if it's true. Okay, if it's true, oops, and I'm going to render the model component. Okay, so if it's true, so by default I'm just setting this to true so that we can see. So in here I'm going to pass in the props. So I'm going to say title. Oops, title. I'm going to pass in the title property. I'm also going to pass in the link. I'm going to pass in the link property, and then I'm going to pass in the embed URL. I'm going to pass in the embed URL as well. I think I need to also pass the state. I need to change the state in the model. I'm going to say set model. I'm going to pass set model. So I'm going to have access to these properties in the model. So here, let's destructure those properties, shall we? Okay, so in the model, we're going to destructure all of them. So I'm just going to copy the properties here in here. Okay. Now we didn't do the URL. Okay. So these are the properties for the model that we're distracting them. Make sure, let's also import theme const. So this is getting getting old and boring, isn't it? Theme. Here we're going to do theme. We go to theme. So we have access to theme in the so we have access to the theme in the variables. I mean, not in the variables, in the styles. So here I'm going to do a model div. Okay. So after that, after the model div, I'm going to have another div. It's going to be called overlay dot overlay. Okay. Overlay. So for the overlay, when I click this overlay, it's going to close the model. So here in the final, when I double click, so the overlay is this dark color here. So when I click this dark color, it's going to close the model. Okay. It's going to change the state. So let's kind of start. We'll start with the overlay. So I'm going to say dot overlay. So overlay, I'm going to say position to fixed. Position to fixed. So that's for the overlay. I'm going to say top 0, left 0, width and height 100%, and the background color to black, and then the opacity is 0.6, which is 60%. And then I'm going to save. Okay. So as you can see, there's the overlay. For some reason, it's too bright, it's too dark. Background color RGBA. Why is it so dark? 0.1. Let's leave it 0.1 for now. We're going to see why it's so dark like this. I think it's because we don't have the model content yet. So let's leave it 0.1. Okay. So when we click, we want to run a callback function. Callback function, and then we're gonna set model to I think to false. Okay, so it's like we want to close the model. So by default it's set to true, but when I click it should be false. I think I know why. There's because we are rendering a lot of GIF items, so there's so many models that are open. So we're going to fix this issue in a minute. Okay, so there's so many models open which we're going to fix. All right, so let's leave it at 0.6. All right, 0.6 position fixed. So now we only want to open the model on the item that we click on. Okay, so that's why this was so dark. So we're going to fix that once we do the click functionality on the item, on the GIF item. Okay, so here model. So when we double click on the item, we want to sort of we want to open the model. Okay, so let's do on double click. Let's do a callback function. Callback function in here. We're gonna do set model to true. Okay, and then let's put it to false by default. False. Okay, now let's save. So now we should double click and open the model. So now it's opening properly. Double click, it's opening whatever item we click on. Okay, double click, and it's wherever we click, it's gonna close because we don't have the model content yet. So that's what we need to do in the model. So in here, we have access to the properties. We just need to, put the content in the model. So I'm gonna do dot model content. So for the model content, let's start with the img, which is going to be the GIF. Okay, so we have that. Let's do a class name. All right, so after that, we're going to have a text content. So the text content is the right side, which is this area here. That's the text content. In the text content, we're going to have an h3. So for the h3, we're just going to insert the title, which is the prop. And then we have a div called share item. We're going to have 3 of these divs. And then the first one is going to be called share. I'm so terrible at typing. Share. Okay, so in here we're going to have an anchor tag. So the href is going to be link for this one. Link. And then in the a tag, I'm going to have an icon, which is going to be paper plane. You can have any icons that you want. And then I'm going to have a span. It's going to be called share. Okay, share. As you can see here in the final one, there's icon and then share, and then we have these 2 icons here as well. So I'm going to set the target to blank. So I want to, when you click this one of these links, it's gonna send you to a new page. So I'm going to create 2 more divs out of this share item with different links. Okay, I'm gonna paste 2 more divs. So the other one is embed URL. And then the other one is GIPHY. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the warnings here. So to get rid of the warnings, I'm just going to do a comment. I'm going to do es lint disable. Okay, yes, lint disable. So now the warnings are gone. So now we have 3 divs. Okay, so when I go back now, when I double click, as you can see, there it is. For some reason, the GIF is not showing. So image source GIF. Let's go back to the GIF item where we were rendering the model again. Yep, in here. Okay, so we didn't pass the GIF. We should put this URL. Okay, so let's do a GIF property and then pass the URL. Save. So now double click. It seems to be not showing. The model content, we actually need to style this first. Let's style the model content first, and then we're gonna do everything. So go down here, we're gonna do .model. So that's when we're gonna start do the styles. I'm gonna set the percent fixed to top 50%, left 50%, because I want to center this on the screen, and then translate left and right 50%, minus 50%, minus 50%. So it's going to be centered. So as you can see now, it's now centered on the screen. But the Z index, we need to make sure it's on top of the the overlay that we're clicking here. So I'm gonna set the Z index to 13, and then give it a border radius to 15 pixels. I'm gonna save. As you can see, it's now on top. Okay, so I'm also going to set the background to color BG1. All right, so okay, that's that. Double click. So now, as you can see, it's showing now nicely. So I'm going to target the model content. I'm going to give the model content a padding. So padding is going to be 2 RAM around, and then a display flags, center, align items, and then give it a gap of 2 RAM. Now let's save. So double click. So now there's a padding around the content, the model content. Okay. Now let's style the image. So for the image, I'm just going to give it a border radius, img, border radius, and then a border of 1 pixel solid. Okay, so props, or accessing the theme prop, and then accessing the variable color blue 2. All right, so double click. So now there's a nice border here on the image. Okay, after the image, I'm going to say text content text content. So for the text content, I'm going to target the H3. I'm going to do the same animation. I'm going to give it a font size, a border bottom of 1 pixel solid, and then a blue color, blue 2. Okay, I'm going to save that, double click, there it is, the border bottom. So what I'm also going to do now, let's do the animation. So I'm going to give it a background of linear gradient. I'm going to put 3 gradients in this one. So you can add as many gradients you might want to add in here. So in this case, I'm going to use color salmon, color blue 2, color green. I'm going to save that. That's going to be the background of the text. But I want to clip this background to the text, okay? So we're going to be using the background clip property. All right, background clip. And also I'm going to do an animation. So I'm going to give it a background size of 400 because I want to do an animation. So I'm going to save. So I want to create an animation called gradient. We've created this animation before. So name the animation gradient. So it's basically animating the background position. All right. So there's our animation. So the text should be animated now, as you can see. It's animating the color. Okay. So that's for the H3. We can now target the share item. Let's collapse the H3. I'm going to say dot share item, which is the the icons, okay, and the links. So for the share items, I'm going to give it a margin bottom, font weight, transition, a color, and a cursor to pointer. All right. So margin, and when we hover, whenever I'm just going to scale the item, and then translate it on the x-axis to 25 pixels. I want to go to the right side, 25 pixels. When we have a double click on hover, as you can see, it's going to the right side and also scaling. All right. So that's the effect we're looking for. But now we need to style the anchor tag, the A tag. So we're going to do font size, font family inherit, color inherit, text decoration to none. And then we're going to do a display grid. So I want the icon to take a size of 40 pixel, the icon side, and then the remaining space is going to be taken by the text. Okay, as you can see, the icon is going to occupy 40 pixels. So as you can see, the 40 pixels for the icon is going to make everything in the same line like this. Okay, because all of them are going to occupy 40 pixels. Perfect. So now the model is nicely styled. Okay, so the other thing that we need to do a loading. So we're gonna do pure CSS loaders. So, okay, let's look for a loader. That can't remember which website I've used for the loaders. Not this one. I need to show you the website that I've used for the loader so you can get the same loader if you want. Yeah, this is the website. So in this case, I'm using this loader here. Just click on the source. So just create a new component, name it loader.js, create functional component, export. Okay, const loader styled equal to styled. So it's going to be like a div. So this is going to be our loader. So make sure you go back and then copy the HTML here. Copy the HTML and then you have to paste it in here. Okay, that's the HTML. So now what you need to do is copy the styles. Okay, so I want this loader actually to be never mind. So now copy the styles, copy here all of these styles here, just copy them and then paste them in here. paste them. Okay, so now save. So what I've only modified in here is just the border here. It was like 8 pixels. I just modified this to like 4 pixels to make it thinner. And also the color, you can I'll change the color. That's the only thing I've modified. So now we have this loader here, and the border is thinner and the color is different. That's it. So now with the loader, what we need to do now, we can kind of go back to the trending. So we can, implement the loader now if you want to, show the loading effect. So trending after the H2, so here we need to use global. We need to get loading from global. Okay, so loading, we've implemented the loading already. So loading, so if it's loading, we're going to load the loader component. Okay, I'm going to save. So hopefully when it's load, you see like there's a preloader, there's a loader here. Okay, there it is. But I want it to be at the center somewhere here. Okay, so we need to do display flex. Let's go to the loader. Here we just need to flex display here. So display flex and justify content to center. All right, because we want to center this horizontally. Okay, that's it. So now it should be appearing on at the center. Okay, perfect. So now we have a loader, and in the trending, we can use the loader. So let's see, we might want to use the loader in the GIF item. If you want to, we can use it later maybe. Okay, let's actually do it in the GIF item as well. I don't think that's necessary, but let's do it. Okay, so here I'm going to cut this div. I'm going to say loading. So make sure you get loading. I'm going to say use global. I'm going to get loading const loading. So loading from use global. So if it's loading, okay, I'm going to load the loader component. Else, if it's not loading, I'm going to paste the div here. Okay, so if it's not loading, I'm going to run this div. That's it. Okay, so now I'm going to save this. Okay, so double click, everything works fine. All right, so now we have the trending. We need a way to also get a random GIF. Okay, so we have components, like we have trending GIFs, random, and liked. So we're going to run a switch statement. We're going to run a switch. We're going to switch between liked, trending, and random GIF. Okay, so I'm going to go to the app.js. So we're going to run a switch. I'm going to say const content is going to be a function. So here I'm going to say switch. So what are we going to switch? Well, I'm going to create a state. Okay, state. Okay, so I want to have a state. So we might have a state of liked, state of trending, and state of random GIF. So here I'm going to say const. So I'm going to say rendered component, whatever component is showing, rendered, and set rendered equal to use state. Okay, so make sure you import use state. Okay, so by default, the trending page is going to be showing, okay, trending. I'm going to name it trending. You can name it whatever you want. So we're going to switch rendered. Okay. So in this switch, we're gonna say case trending. So make sure it's a string. trending. Oh my days, I cannot type. Trending. So for the case trending, we're going to return a trending component, which we already have. All right, and then we're going to have a case for liked. So in this case, I'm just going to return this a few more times. So we have trending, and then we have liked, and then we have random, and then we have finally a search, and then a default case, default, which we're going to return. We're going to return trending by default. It's going to be our default component. Okay, so we just need to create a few of these components. Okay, we're switching. So now what I need to do, I'm gonna get rid. I'm just going to get rid of the trending in here, and then run the content function. Content. Okay, so now we're running the content. By default, we should be able to see this trending is still there. So what we need to do is switch. When we click this button here, switch between the components. All right, so I'm going to go for the button. Let's do on click. So let's start with the first one, which is on click. Okay, so it's going to do an callback function in here, and then we're going to set rendered to liked. Okay, because we're switching between states here. So liked. So if it's liked, when we click the liked, it's going to change the component to the liked component. I'm gonna copy this. This one should be trending. To here, trending. Actually, this one is random. Okay, so that's the random. Let's go to the button. We'll just do on click equal to on click, which is coming from the should be this one here. On click. Okay, perfect. So now let's close the button. So we should be able to switch. So when I go to class name, there's an icon which I didn't change the class name. That is coming from font awesome. Class name. Yeah, so I forgot to change I don't know which icon. I forgot to change the class to class name. But anyways, it doesn't matter. We'll change it later. So let's go to the components, to the two React developer tools. Actually, app. So we have trending. So when I click random, it should change the state to random, as you can see. When I click trending, it should change the state to trending, and the liked, it should change the state to liked. So that means our state is working and we're switching through the tabs. But we don't see anything yet because we're using the same component. But if we were to use different components, you would see that it's actually working as intended. Okay, so let's start with the random. So for the random, let's create a component for that. It's not going to take a lot of time. Let's do random.js, which is good to React function component. React RFC. Okay, so it's going to be an article. So make sure you import styled. Okay, start from style components. And I'm going to replace this. Okay, so make sure you import theme const theme equal to use theme from context. Okay, and also we need the global. I'm gonna say use global coming from the context. I'm going to destructure the random and the loading state. So the random, we haven't done the random yet. We're going to do it now when we go to the global. Okay, so in here, I'm just going to do a few things. It's not a lot. I want to say loading. If it's loading, okay, I'm going to run the loader component. Else, I'm just going to do a GIF item. Okay, we've created this component already. The GIF item component we've created already. I'm just going to destructure the properties that are coming from the random. Okay, I'm going to show you what's going on here. So let's go to do a random. So let's go to the global. There's so many things open. Okay, so in the global, we need to get a random GIF. Okay, so let's create a new function. Random GIF. Okay, so in here I'm gonna say const random GIF. Go to this be async. It's an arrow function. Okay, so make sure we are going to dispatch. So the type action here is going to be loading. So the type is going to be loading. Okay, so if it's loading, we do something, and then in here we need to actually get the data. Okay, so we're gonna do const response. You go to axios dot get. Okay, so we're basically doing the same thing. We're just going to pass in we're going to do template literals, and then pass in the base. Oops, the base URL. Okay, I'm just gonna paste to the base URL, and then I'm gonna do slash, and then we're gonna do random. It's gonna give us a random GIF, and then API key equal to our key. Okay, the variable API key. Okay, so that's it. That's the link to get the random file. So here we're just gonna dispatch an action. So the action that we're going to be dispatching, so let's do a type. So the type of the action, let's name it get random. Okay, so when we get random, we need to also send a payload. Okay, payload, and then we're gonna do a response to data, and then to data. What's going on here? Oh, because I didn't put a weight. Never mind. I need to put a weight here. Okay, we're gonna do a weight access to get. All right, so now get random. We don't have this action yet. Global actions. Okay, so now we put it here. So get random. So we have the action get random. That's our action. So let's go back to the global. Get random. Save. Let's go back to the reducer, global reducer, and then let's do case. Oh my days. Case get random. So make sure you import get random from actions. All right. So in here we're just going to return, and then previous state, and then we're going to change the random. Okay, so loading, we actually need to set loading to false as well. Loading false, and then random is going to be action dot payload. Okay, now let's save. So let's go to the state, to the global state, there should be a random, which is an empty object. Random switch. Let's save action to payload. Let's save everything in the global as well. Oh, because we are not running this random here on initial render, so get random, get what? Random GIF. I think that's the name of the function. Okay, now save. So on initial render, it should be running, and then the random, as you can see, now the properties are filled in. Okay, the properties of a random GIF are filled in the random. Okay, in this random here. So what's going on? So now we have access to a random GIF in this random state value, and then we're accessing that state value within the I can't remember what component I was doing, the random. So yeah, in the random here, so we're destructuring, getting the random, okay, and then the random properties, where I'm spreading those properties here. So we have those properties in GIF item already. So if I go to the GIF item, so this, we're destructing these properties, okay? So we're reusing this GIF item, and also, we're getting the same properties. So we're going to have access to the same properties. So that means when I go to random, I will have same properties. Okay, so these properties are the same properties that I'm destructing the GIF item. So what I need to do is just go here, and when I go to random, I'm just gonna render the random component. Okay, I'm going to save. So now, yeah. So now when I click the random, it should render a random component, which is not happening. But yeah, it's showing a random component, a random item. But I need to, whenever I click this button, I need to keep, rendering, calling the function. Okay. So how do I keep calling the function? Well, I need to send the function global random GIF. I need to send this function in here alongside the state. Okay, so I can access this function anywhere that I want to access it. So in this case, I want to access that function in here. So here I'm gonna say use global here. So we're gonna say const. We're going to destructure the name of the function. Okay, random GIF. So random GIF, I want to run the function whenever I click the random button. So here we're just gonna do random GIF, and then we'll call the function whenever we click the button. So go back to the random. Okay, as you can see, the preloader is working, and it's generating a random GIF every time I click on it. Even when I double click, it's gonna open this nice model because we're using the same component, the GIF item. Okay, so let's finish styling the thing. Sometimes my English. Let's finish styling the random component. Let's go back to random, and yeah, let's give it a padding and a background color and a border radius of 1 rem and a width of 50% because I don't want to be covering the whole width of the container, and then a margin 0 auto to center this horizontally. Okay. Okay, so margin 0, top and bottom, and then left and right auto, and then it's going to center this like this nicely. So every time we click, we're gonna get a nice GIF. So let me see here. It's going to get us but the padding is not showing because we're not using the theme prop. So we're gonna use the theme prop in here. So we have access to the prop here in here, the theme prop. So I'm gonna save. So now when I go back, so as you can see now the padding is showing every time I'm generating a random GIF. Okay, so that's it for random. Now let's work on the feature for search. Okay, so for the search functionality, let's do search.js. Okay, so for the search, it's going to we're going to run the same grid. Okay, so what I can do, I can copy. What I'll do, I'll copy the trending, Control C, and then go for the search. We'll close everything here just to make sure everything looks cleaner. We can open this whenever we want to. Okay, so I'm gonna paste here. Instead of trending, I'm gonna F2 to refactor. So I'm going to name this search, refactor this with F2. So in this one, instead of trending styled, here we just say search styled. Okay. Oops. F2 search styled. Okay. So for the search, it's the same thing. I'm going to say search results, and then the icon is what I'm going to change in the state, in the search. So I'm going to get a list icon from Font Awesome. Just search for list. Okay. So I'm gonna paste it here. Just put in the variable, and it's called list. And then I'm going to say list in here instead of trend. Go back to app. So we have a search state. Here I'm going to change the name of the component to search. Okay, so we have search. We haven't handled the input yet. Search. Okay, so for the search, instead of looping through trending, we're going to loop through search results, which we don't have yet. Results, which we do not have, because it's coming from the global search results. I'm just gonna paste it here and get rid of trending. Okay, so I'm gonna collapse this. So now we're looping through search results, which we don't have. We haven't done the search yet. What we need to do is go back to global. We need to kind of do the functionality to work on the search. Okay, so random, I'm going to say const, I'm going to say actually search here. I'm going to say const search, let's do search GIFs equal to, it's going to take a query. Okay, so for the query, let's dispatch. We're going to do a loading. Type of the action is going to be loading. Okay, loading, that's the type. And then for the search, we're going to do const response equal to await. We need to make sure this is an async, so we can use await. Okay, so await, we're going to do axios.get. We're going to do a get request. We're going to do a template literal, copy this base URL, and then we're going to say slash. We're going to say search, and then a question mark, and then we're going to say API key equal to our API key. Okay, and then we're going to say end for the query q equal to, and then we're going to pass in the query. Okay, and also we want to put a limit to how many items we want to get. We're going to do end, and then we're going to say limit, and then we can do 30, 25. Let's do 25. Make sure the spelling is correct. Okay, so limit, we set that to 25. Okay, so we're going to dispatch an action, which is get search. Okay, get search data. You can name it whatever you want. So dispatch an action here, type. Well, let's do get search, and then payload. We're going to do, let's do response.data. Okay, so we need to create this action, get search. let's go back to global actions. Okay, so get search and then save. So make sure you import get search from the actions. Okay, and then we go to global reducer, get random, duplicate this to search, get search. Okay, loading, we set that to false. Once we get the data, here we're going to do search results, and then we're going to pass the search results to the we're going to pass the search results to this array. Okay, the payload here. So the payload is going to go to the search results array. So let's see if this is working. So what I'm going to do on initial render search, I'm going to pass in a random query. Here I'm going to just pass in a query just to see if this is working. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to save. So let's go to the React tools. We're going to see if we have something in the search results, which we do. So we have something that corresponds to our query. Okay, so that means our search is working. So what we need to do is, let's send this function here so we can access it. So here I'm gonna send the search. So what we need to do now, we need to go to the header. Oops, in the header. So in the header, that's where we're going to do the search, because that's where our input is. Okay, so let's create a state in the header. I'm gonna say const. Let's name it query. We go to set query. Okay, equal to use state. By default, it's going to be an empty string. Okay, so I'm going to be using use global. I want to get the function const. What's the name of the function? I've copied the function on my clipboard. It's called search GIFs. Okay, so search query. Let's say const handle submit equal to, it's going to take in an event. Okay, so like this. So we're just going to do the e.prevent default, the standard, because to prevent the form from submitting. Okay, all right, so after that, so I'm going to say search GIFs, and then we're going to pass in the query. Okay, so we need to do a handle change as well, so we can update this query state const handle change. It's going to take in an event as well, because we want to access the text that is coming from the input, which is e.target. Okay, so here we're going to say set query to e.target or value, or whatever we pass in the input. Okay, so now we have the query, and also actually when we submit the search, we want to show the search results here and get rid of the data here. We need a way to access the state that we created earlier. Also, I need to set the set query to an empty string when we submit. Okay, so now handle change. Let's go to the input. Here we're gonna do on submit. We're gonna do handle submit. Okay, so here we're gonna say on change. We're gonna do handle change, and then value is going to be the query. Okay, value is going to be the query. So let's see, let's click the header, the state, it's empty. Let's try to update the state. As you can see, the state is updating to whatever we're entering. Okay, so yeah, that means it's working. So but when I click submit, when I do hello, When I click submit, I want the results to show here. So we need a way for this rendered to change, okay, for this state. So I'm going to say set rendered. I'm going to pass it as a prop to the header. Okay, set rendered. I'm going to pass it as a prop so I can access it inside the header. So in here, set rendered. Okay, so what I'm going to do before we set the set query to an empty string, I'm going to say set rendered. I'm going to set that to search. Okay, so let's make sure on the search, we're running the search component. As you can see, it's there. Make sure you import the search component. So now, when we say hello, we should run the search. Okay, as you can see, the search component runs. For some reason, some of the items, they take a while to load. But when I click back the trending, it comes back again. Maybe when I go for Coca-Cola, everything comes in. But sometimes it's very slow to load. I don't know why. Okay, as you can see, everything works fine. We can go for the random. We might want to put a preload as well on each item if you want to. So now the search works, but let's say what happens when we do an empty, if there's nothing here. So I think the best way is to do an alert or to do an error, but I just want to refetch the component, the trending component. So well, if it's empty, let's go back to header. So if the search is empty, if the query is empty, I'm just going to say if query equal to empty. If it's empty, I'm just going to set rendered to trending. Okay, so I'm just going to set it back to the default state value, which is trending. Okay, so now, so if it's empty, when we try to submit, when it's empty, it's going to, fetch the trending component. Okay, perfect. So everything seems to be working fine so far. Yeah, it's like taking a while to load the data when we search. I don't know why. Okay, so eventually the data will load, but I think let's limit the items. Actually, we can always load more data later on. So let's go to the global. You can always load more data. Let's do 20 or 18. That's up to you. So we can always, load more data later. So when we want more data, you can, put a button here to load more or infinite scroll. It depends what you want to do. Okay. So yeah. Pretty weird. Let's see. Oh, I think I might have run out of API calls because today I was developing this project as well. Yeah, I think I might have run out of credits or something. Yeah, I think I might have run out of credits that I can use per hour, or I don't know how that works. Anyway, I think it's working. Anyway, so now let's go back. Let's work on the liked. Okay, so for the liked, let's name it favorites, or you can name it liked, whatever. It's entirely up to you. New component, favorites.js. Okay, so in here, I'm just going to copy same thing from the trending. Okay, so let's go for the trending. Control C, and then go back to the, I'm gonna close the search. Let's go back to the favorites. I'm gonna copy here, F2 to refactor. I'm going to name this favorites. Okay, so here refactor as well, F2. Oops. Favorites. All right. So now instead of trending data, I'm going to do favorites. Favorites. Oops. Okay. Favorites. I'm going to get rid of the console. Collapse this. So here I'm going to say favorites or liked. It's up to you. Okay. I'm going to save this. So now we have the favorites component, which we don't have the favorites yet. That's what we need to work on. If we go into the global, okay, so we need to work on the favorites. So we're also, to add the favorites, we're going to work with the local storage. Okay, so when we're creating the favorites, we're also working on the local storage at the same time. So what we need to do, we're going to create an action called add to favorites. Let's do that action. Global actions, add to favorites. Okay, so that's the action name. Trending, I'm gonna close the trending. So now let's go to the global. I'm gonna say save to favs. Okay, so I'm gonna say const save to favorites. Okay, so save to favorites. Okay, so it's going to take whatever item we want to send to the favorites. Okay, so in here we're going to do a local storage. Okay, so we can send the item to the we're going to send the item to the local storage, the item that we want to save. So I'm going to say const, I'm going to say stored items, okay, equal to JSON, and then we're going to pass, and then we're going to say window. We're going to try to get whatever items we have in the local storage window, and then dot local storage, and then we're going to do get item. Okay, so we're going to say favorites. We haven't added something yet with this name favorites. But first we're going to try to get if we have it. Okay, otherwise it's just going to be an empty array. Okay, like that. And then down here I'm going to say if I'm going to check if there's no stored items, if we don't have anything in the local storage. Okay, I'm going to use the sum method. I'll show you sum method. So the sum method, okay, so the method that tests whether at least one element in the array passes the test implemented by the provided function. It returns true if it is in the array, or if it finds an element for which provided function returns true, for which the provided function returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. It doesn't modify the array. So that's what we want. We'd want to modify the array. So here we're going to say sum. So what are we going to? Let's name it item because it takes a callback function item. Okay, so it's going to return item.id. So if item.id, okay, equal to GIF.id, whatever we pass in, the GIF, whatever we pass in, if it matches, well, what are we going to do? I'm going to create a new array in here. I'm going to say const. I'm going to say name it items. Okay, so it's going to be a new array. I'm going to copy the previous stored items, the ones in the array, if there's something in the local storage, I mean, and then the previous items in the local storage, and then I'm going to add one more item, whatever item I want to add in the local storage, and then we're just going to add it after we copy using the spread operator the existing items in the local storage. Okay, so we're going to put that into a new array. Okay, and then down here we're just going to say window. dot local storage, and then we're going to say set item, set, and then we're going to add the new set item. What's going on? Set item. Okay, so here we're going to add the favorites, and then we're just going to stringify that with json.stringify, and then items. Okay, so now if the item is not in the local storage, we can just add to the local storage. So it's just going to dispatch an action, and then here we're just going to say type, and then add to favorites. So make sure you import that from the actions, and then the payload is going to be the whatever the item we want to send. Okay, whatever item we want to send to the local storage. So we can do an alert here if you want to. We can say alert added to favorites, to favs. Okay, and then we can do else alert already exists, if it already exists. Okay, so here if we're just checking if it doesn't exist, whatever item we want to add, if it doesn't exist, and then we just add that. We just do this action here, add to favorites, if it doesn't exist. Else, if it already exists, we just put an alert like, oh, it exists already. Okay, so here we're just checking if it doesn't exist in the local storage. Okay, if it doesn't exist, and then we add that item, and then we dispatch an action. Okay, so now we have saved to favorites. We need to get a way to save this. So I'm gonna take this, save to favorites, and then I'm gonna send it here. We need to access save to favorites. So I want to click the love icon here, and then I want to see that in the local storage. Okay, so it might be confusing actually. I'm going to name it my favorites because I'm using favorites in the final app, so I'm going to name it my favorites. Okay, so to make sure it's not confusing. So save to favorites. If I go to the, I can't remember where I put the GIF item. Yeah, in here. So in the global, I'm going to save to favorites. I'm going to import that. So when I click the love on click, we're going to run a callback function in here. So when I click, I'm going to say save to favorites. I'm going to send the object. So the object, what I want to send in here, I'm going to send, I think I'll send an ID in this object. I'll send in the title. What else do I need to send? I'll send in the URL, and then I'll do link. And then I'll send in the images, the properties that we've, destructured. And then images, we're going to do original. Okay, and then we're just going to do URL. Okay, so that's the properties we want to send. So I'm going to save this. Okay, so we have ID, title, link. Okay, let's save. So hopefully when we click should add to favorites, let's see in the application, local storage. Okay, click on the local storage 3001. So when I click the love added to favs, the alert, so now there's this item in the local storage. As you can see, it's added. So when I click the item again, it's saying added to favs. But it's not going to add again if the item already exists. Okay, it's not going to add the item again in the local storage. But when I click this one saying added to favs, it's going to add the item in the local storage, but something weird is going on. Because we're actually not handling what's happening with the action. So we need to go back to the global, copy the add to favorites. We need to go to the global reducer. We need to handle the action, what happens if we add to favorites. Okay, so basically what we need to do is, let's do case favorites. Okay, make sure you import that. We're just going to return an object dot state. Okay, and then we're going to do favorites, and then here we're going to return a new array, and then we're gonna copy the previous state values dot favorites. Favorites, and then here we're just gonna say action dot payload. Action. I don't know what the act is. Okay, action dot payload. So now let's save. Okay, so edit favs. So okay, now let's refresh. For some reason, it's not adding all of the other files to the local storage. So let's go back. Let's see what's going on. We might have done something wrong. So stored items. Oh, it's so here get. So we're getting the favorites. So we're getting the wrong one. So my favorites. So let's create a set item. We're creating a sort of an array here of my favorites. So here to get, we also need to get my favorites. It's like the array. We're going to get the same array. So save. So now you should be able to add more items. As you can see, it's adding more items. If it already exists, it's still adding the same item. We need a way for us not to add the same item if it already exists. Okay, but it's doing the job. It's adding the items. So okay, so dispatch and favorites, and then edit favorites, payload, stringify. Okay, so now we need to actually do a use effect first to get from the local storage. Okay, and then we will focus on doing the duplicates later. So now let's do get from local storage. So I'm gonna say const get from local storage. So you can name the function whatever you want. Get from local storage. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing here. Copy the same thing, and we're going to dispatch an action. Okay, so here I'm going to say dispatch. So type of the action is going to be get favorites. So that's the action, and then we're going to do a payload, which is going to be stored items. Okay, so get favorites. Let's go back to the global reducer. Okay, so for the global reducer, get favorites, we're gonna set the favorites to the case get favorites. We don't have this action yet, actually. Let's go to the actions, duplicate this. Oops. Okay, so get favorites. So now we have the get favorites. Okay, so now here we're just going to return return the previous state, and then we're going to say favorites action.payload payload save get favorites, because we haven't imported this one yet, so make sure you import this. Okay, save. Add it to favs. Okay, so it keeps adding. Okay, so get favorites, get from local storage. On initial render, we want to get from local storage to run on initial render. Okay, so let's do get from local storage. I want it to run from initial render. Okay, so get from local storage, I want it to run from initial render, because I want to show, like as you can see here, if I go to light on initial render, you're going to see the items that are in the local storage. That's what I want to that's what I want to do. So I want to, on initial render, to get items from local storage. So the only reason why I'm not previewing a lot is because I don't want to keep making a lot of requests. Okay, so I just want to see something here. So now we can get from local storage. We need a way to remove from local storage. So this will be our final functionality for the local storage, removing from local storage. Okay, so to remove the item from local storage, down here, we don't need to dispatch anything. So I'm going to say const remove from local storage. The storage equal to. Okay, so in here, in the remove, I'm going to do the same thing, stored items. Okay, so I'm going to say const items. I'm going to filter stored items. Okay, and the filter is going to take in a callback function item. I'm going to return item.id. Item.id that is not equal to GIF.id. Okay, so GIF, so whatever item we pass in, if the whatever is in the local storage, the ID, if it's not equal to whatever ID we pass in, we want to return that. Okay, and we want to return that whatever ID. If the ID matches, we don't want to return that item. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. If the ID matches, we don't want to return the item, but the items that are not matching the ID, that's what we want to return. Okay, gif.id. Okay, so in here, down here, we're gonna say window.local storage, and then we're gonna say .set item. Set item. I'm gonna say my favorites. Okay, and then we're just going to say JSON .stringify. We're going to stringify the items. Okay, that's it. And then when we trigger the remove this function, I also want to fetch the items from the local storage. Get updated. I'm just gonna say list or something. Then get from local storage. Okay, after we remove. Okay, now let's save. Okay, so now I'm just gonna double check if favorites. So make sure when you're getting an item and setting an item, the names, they are the same. The experiments are correct. Okay. Listen to pass window.local storage, get item, went to an empty array. I'm just double checking if I've made a mistake. Okay, so everything seems to be in order. GIF. Okay, so here we're dispatching, add to favorites, payload, alert, edit to favs. All right. So now I'm gonna save. Let's try to add items to the local storage again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rerun the project, Ctrl C, and then rerun, npm start. I'm gonna close this. Let's rerun it. Okay, I can't believe I've been doing this for like almost 3 hours without a break at all. Let's go to the... I haven't taken any break whatsoever. I've just been going straight. Okay, so now let's go to the application. Go to the my favorites. Let me try to click added. Okay, I want to kind of stop adding the existing item from local storage. So let's go back to the GIF item. We can kind of do it there. Let me see. GIF item, save to favorites. Okay. Let me go to the components, global provider, favorites. Now let me click the same one. It's adding the same one to the favorites. Let me refresh this. This disappears now. So let's try to render the liked first, actually. Let's render that first, and then we'll see how we get on. Okay. So now, yeah, go to the app. Go to the app. So for the liked, we're going to render favorites in here. Okay. Save. Go to the favorites. So now it's showing a list of favorites. Refresh. Okay, so it's still there. It's showing items from the local storage, but it's duplicating. We kind of want to stop that duplication. All right, so rendered. Okay, so I'm back. So I was doing this in a wrong way, actually. So first, after we're kind of, getting the items from local storage, we need to check, if that item exists. So we need to use a find method. So here I'm going to say const existing. Okay, so I'm going to say existing item equal to stored items from the local storage. Then I'm going to run a find method, a find, to try to find if that item exists. I'm going to say it's going to take a callback function. I'm going to say item. In here, I'm going to return item.id if the item.id matches to whatever item we pass in the GIF ID. Okay, GIF ID, GIF ID. If it matches, okay. So here I'm going to say if the existing item is, if it's not there, if it doesn't exist, okay, if not existing item, if it doesn't exist, that's when we want to, do the const create a new array of items. Okay, so here we're just going to say copy the previous stored items and then add the new item, and then that's when we do the add to local storage if it doesn't exist. Okay, and then we dispatch the add to favorites, and then we do the alert, the one we had earlier. Okay, the alert, and then the alert, and then we do else. Okay, so else we do another alert if it exists. Item already exists. Already exist. Okay, so now let's save this. Let's see if it's duplicating. Let's go to the application for a minute. Let's go to my favorites. I'm going to refresh this one more time. Okay, so my favorites, I'm going to click already exists because now the item already exists. So we need a way to remove these items from local storage. Okay, so if we go to liked, so there's still duplicates because these duplicates were made before we check if the item exists or not in the local storage. So let's go to the remove store local from local storage. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to send remove to here. So we want to access remove inside the GIF here, save to favorites, and then I'm going to say remove from local storage. So what I need to access is the rendered. So GIF item, I need to access rendered. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I go to the, where am I doing GIF item? GIF item, rendered. Do I have rendered in the favorites? So I just want to make sure I have access. I want to send rendered. Let me send that to favorites. Here, rendered. I want to see which component is rendered. Okay, so let's go to the app. Here, I want to send the rendered state because I want to be able to see what component is rendered. All right, so I want to have access to the state inside the GIF, and then I'll go down here. I'm going to say rendered. I'm going to send that as well, rendered. So I'm sending the state and I'm doing prop trailing. So rendered. So when I go to GIF item here, I'm just going to say rendered. I'm going to destructure rendered because I want to see what prop is being rendered. Okay, so now let's scroll down to GIF. So down here, I'm going to do a conditional. So here, I'm going to say if rendered equal to liked, if I'm in the liked rendered, if I'm in the liked section, if the liked is rendered, here we're just going to run remove from local storage. Okay, it's coming from the global. Remove from local storage. I'm just going to copy this object here. Okay, we're going to remove this object, so the corresponding ID. Okay, and corresponding data here. We're just going to remove that object. Okay, so if we're on the liked, so when we click the love icon, we're going to remove the item from local storage. Okay, else we are going to save that item. Okay, if we're not, because we won't be in the, we won't be on the liked. Okay, so if rendered equal to liked, so that means the liked is rendered. So here, if I click, it's going to add already exists anyway. So if I go to liked, when I click, it should remove, hopefully. When I click, it's saying edit to favs, but it's removing from local storage, as you can see. Okay, it's doing wrong alerts, but let's see, something is weird is happening. But yeah, let me refresh. Liked. Okay, so now it's showing 4 items. It's correct, but we need a way to remove edit files. Okay, so because this is not in an else, okay, so cut this. So if, let's do the else, and then you put it there in the else. Okay, so now let's save. So now let's try to click. It's removing from local storage, as you can see. Okay, so yeah, because we're in the liked component that's being rendered, it's removing. But when I go back to the trending, I can add this. It's saying edit to files. When I try to add again, it says already exists. And then when I go to the liked, it's there. When I click the love, I can delete it. So what I want is to show an X, okay? When we're on the liked, to show an X instead of love. So we're going to do a conditional in the item here. So for the class, well, let's do a template literal. I'm going to cut this. So we're going to do rendered, okay? So I'm going to say rendered. So rendered, if rendered equal to, rendered equal to liked. Okay, so if I'm on the liked, okay, I'm going to do a question mark. It's a ternary operator. If I'm on the liked, I'm going to do an X. Else, I'm going to do a hat because I'm not in the liked component. So I'm going to put a class name of FA solid, FAX, okay, like this. So now it's going to show an X. When I go to the home page, the trending, it's not showing an X anymore. When I go to the liked, depending on what component I'm rendering, so that's what I'm doing conditional in a showing of this class of the icon. Okay, so yeah, when I click the X, it should remove from local storage. When I go back, I can add items here. You can actually create a pop-up that shows here. I was kind of lazy to create a lot of components for pop-ups. But yeah, you can kind of, add everything. Now, when I refresh, everything is still there in the local storage. Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing for the app. We can, search. I mean, for your assignment, for homework, you can kind of, add some. You can add. This is we need to fix this. You can put a width here. You can put a width for the image. That's up to you. If it's too big like this. So now, as you can see, we have search data. For some reason, some of it is taking ages to load, but you get the idea. Now let's refresh. You get the idea. Yeah. So if you want to, you can put like infinite scroll if you want to. Infinite scroll. I think. Let's see. Yeah, you can kind of put infinite scroll if you want to. Or you can put a button to load more data if you want to. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can let me know from the description. If you want to request a project or anything, you can let me know from the description as well. Yeah, I think that's it for this project. So if you wanna find out what's going on with the search, that's entirely up to you. You can kind of see what's going on, why it's so slow and stuff. But yeah, that's your own spare time. Yeah, that's it for this video. If you want to know anything else, you can let me know from the comment. Actually, let's try to make this grid responsive. So let's say at this size, which is, I mean, let's do 1400. Trending. Or is it trending? Okay, so here 1400. Let's do 1400. Let's do 3. Okay, so when we're going down, 1400 is 3. Okay, and 1300, what I will do is I'll go back to the app. Can't remember where I've set the padding. Here at media screen and max width. I'm going to set that to 1400. No, 1300, I think. I'm going to reduce this to 4M, maybe, like so. Yep, 4M, like that. And I will reduce this to 2 at 977. So if you go to trending, go 977, 977. Okay, so now it's 2. Yep, perfect. You can kind of, do many breakpoints, and also for the input here, work around this input here. Okay, so let's do on 1400. If you go to app, copy this breakpoint. If you go to the header form, okay, so here we're going to reduce the padding to 10 rem. Okay, so at this screen size. All right, so yeah, you can kind of do as many breakpoints as you want. Even for these buttons here, you can do breakpoints, but yeah, that's entirely up to you on your free time. That's it for this project for me. And if you have any questions, this issue with the class name, I don't know which class name I forgot to modify, but that's fine. If you have any problems, you can just let me know. I'm going to push this project now to the GitHub, and I'll see you on the next one.